1975, Franco Colombo put on the Mr. America contest here in Los Angeles. I placed third behind Robbie and Roger Callard. I came out here actually expecting to win, but upon reaching backstage and seeing Robbie Robinson swallowing real hard, I realized that I was not going to win. I didn't take it hard either. Upon seeing Robbie, whatever happened, happened. If I didn't win, I didn't really care about second or third. I knew Robbie was going to win, and he did very handily. It was an important show, however, because that's where I met Joe Weider. I remember very clearly being backstage, pumping up before the pre-judging, and I couldn't get over the fact that Joe Weider was back there, and he seemed to spend all of his time staring at me. I was literally shocked. I thought, gee, I knew I looked good, but I didn't think I looked that good. And then he was actually very kind and gracious. He walked up to me after the contest, invited me to a photo session. That was Saturday, with the next Monday morning, at a studio in downtown Los Angeles with Russ Warner. And he was very impressed at the photo session and invited me out to his offices the next day so I could do a series of 4 interviews with Gene Mosaic. Ended up as quite a spread in Muscle Builder, several pages, lots of photos. And I spoke at length about the high-intensity training program. Even Gene, during the interview, was quite surprised that I was only training 3 to 5 sets per body part, only a few days a week. And then, of course, the magazine received quite a bit of mail after that. And I kept doing articles, and the more articles I did, the more response the magazines got, the more response I got. As it turned out, one of those photos from Russ's photo session ended up on the cover of Muscle Builder. So I was ecstatic. I didn't know it was going to be on the cover. I don't think Joe told me it would be. But it did, and I remember being at the newsstand, Washington, D.C., and running home and calling Joe and thanking him for it. He invited me at that point to come out here to California permanently to live and work, perhaps. But I was still in college and turned it down. I went back to Maryland and did go to school.
Very, very happy about that decision. But knew that I wanted to be the best. According to my own timetable, I had to win the next year or 2. So I trained like crazy after this 85 America with my brother back in Washington. Trained very, very heavy that winter. And improved enough to not just win the contest, but totally freak out the judges and people who had seen me the year before because I gained 14 pounds of muscle. And they thought I was a different human being. They didn't even recognize me. I went from being a distant third to a very easy first place win, having beaten Roger Callard on every judge's scorecard but one, and that was Arnold's. There were 9 judges, and every single judge voted for me, but Arnold, of course, Arnold was Roger's training partner. I never felt more excitement than I did the night I won the America. I guess maybe because it is the first big contest, getting over that hump. But I can remember, even before they called my name out, knowing I was going to win, I felt the emotion welling up in my chest, and I had to really keep myself from crying. It was such an exciting moment. And I remember standing on stage, being very, very aware of everything that was going on. The audience, people behind me, around me, and making a definite attempt to never forget this moment. Every impression, sight, sound, smell, everything. I still have that impressed on my mind. That exact moment, everything, the feeling, it was great. But that was the beginning once you win the America, or at least for me it was. That's a stepping stone, a greater stimulus to continue. I went on to 76 Mr. Universe in Montreal. Robbie won. I didn't really think I'd beat Robbie until that night. I thought I had gotten a greater audience reception and people were coming up, Lou Ferrigno, Boyer Coe, and said that, hey, you could really win this thing. But in the back of my mind, in my heart, I knew that there was no way I was going to beat this guy. Not only did I think he looked better, but he was getting all the publicity, and I noticed that Ben Weider was introducing him to all the Montreal dignitaries in the audience, and he didn't even shake my hand, didn't even recognize my existence.
The winter of '76, January, February, I was walking, a quarter to a half mile between classes at the University of Maryland campus, and it was freezing. I didn't have any money. I was working for a doctor on the side. I had a girlfriend. I was just generally having a rough time of it. I was also becoming disheartened about the idea of becoming a psychiatrist. I was tired of being broke, so I called Joe and let him know that I was willing to come out if the invitation was still open, and it was. What I decided to do was, in June of that year, fly to Vancouver, British Columbia, to compete in the Mr. North America contest, which was going to be attended by Joe. I did very well at that contest. I was outstanding and won, and Joe was excited again. It wasn't the greatest competition in the world, but Darcy Beckles and myself and my brother and two other classmates made it a spectacle. On the way down to California from BC in the airplane, we spoke at length, and I decided to definitely make the trip to California. Matter of fact, I stayed there with Joe. My girlfriend was still back in Washington, D.C. We had an apartment. Went about making the arrangements to come out. Followed me a month or so later, and I ended up staying for good, and glad that I did. I had no regrets. So I remember the exact date. It was June 6th, 1977, that I came to California with the intention of staying. I remember very clearly, on getting off the plane, Joe and I were met by Ken Sprague, who was owner of Gold's Gym at that time, and he put me up for a while. And then I lived with Bill Grant for a very short period, and he was a maniac. So all this was done with the idea in mind that Joe would set up a residence for me, or get a residence for me. I ended up living for, about a year or so in a building that Joe's aunt owned on Beverly Glen, West LA, which I enjoyed very much. Kathy and I had a very good year there. During the course of that year, my mail order came out and started doing very well. The lodgings were not spacious enough to accommodate the inventory, so we moved down the street. When I first moved here in June of '77, I was associate editor. I was in the office every single day. I only stayed in the office. I continued working in the office for approximately, maybe just 6 months. Once I was here and the word got out, I started receiving quite a large volume of requests for exhibitions. And because I was traveling all the time, after a certain point, Joe agreed to just let me continue writing without having to appear in the office. Joe and I got along extremely well. Many people thought that he sort of looked upon me as a son that he never had. He was quite happy to be around me, and even proud. He would invite Kathy and I out to dinner, up to 2 times a week. He would invite me over to his residence on weekends, and we would go into his library and talk about philosophy and art. So I was very fond of him.
And then the 77, of course, was much worse because I lost to Gallasch, having been designated the favorite that year. But even that didn't bother me so bad. I've never taken defeat that bad. Cal was very, very good shape, where I was definitely off, not quite at my peak. I've never been devastated by a defeat. I don't view defeat as failure. It's just one step in the learning process. If I lose a contest, as long as it's not due to political reasons, and I analyze the situation, I analyze my physique, my performance, and try to improve on it the next time. But I don't feel as though I've been lessened or diminished in stature as a person because I lost to Gallasch. All these guys are great champions, so losing to them is no big deal. But then having lost the 77 universe, I realized I'd better get my act together or forget about making a career in bodybuilding. And came back in 78 and won with a perfect score.
I knew that I had to win the 78 universe or kiss 65, so I trained very, very hard for the 78 universe. Fortunately, did win that one, first and only perfect score in history. In terms of personal satisfaction and elation, it was not what winning the Mr. America was. Winning the Mr. America involved a sense of achievement and triumph that nothing else after even came close.
The universe was almost anticlimactic. There was no elation at all. Now that was just one more stepping stone to professional bodybuilding.
Having just won the 78 universe, my picture was appearing on the covers of magazines. I was appearing on national TV shows like Merv Griffin, getting a lot of publicity. I was making a lot of money. That was a high point, without a doubt.
Mr. North America for 1977, Mike Mentzer of Washington, D.C. Mike, I understand you're a medical student. Does this help?
It's curious. Bodybuilders don't seem to be seizing the opportunities that exist. I see three different types. Types of bodybuilders on the scene today. Those who see the opportunity but don't seize on it. Those who don't see the opportunity at all. And those who do see it, seize upon it. It's curious because you would think with the greater interest, the rise in bodybuilding's popularity, the increasing number of practitioners, there'd be more individuals making money and enjoying the fruits of their labor. But this is, maybe I'm wrong in my perception, but it doesn't seem to be the case. There are very few bodybuilders who seem to have the ambition to pursue bodybuilding and get out of it what they can financially and the other which way.